Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Are haters mad that the pretty girls are leveling up? Have you ever noticed that we are no longer interested in 50-50 slash hypogamous slash dusty relationships? Because one of you guys commented in the Discord and you were talking about how, how they would make videos saying, oh, she got the same black man or she became a baby mama. I have noticed less and less videos like that over the most recent year. I mean, it's very rare for me to see videos like that, and I think it's because Exoticals as a whole, we are starting to level up more than ever. I mean, we were already pretty leveled up anyway, but we are leveling up more than ever. We are going on decentering men journeys. Like, even if you look at a lot of the Exotical channels, notice how a lot of our channels, they don't really talk about men a lot or like how to catch a man, how to make a man like you and stuff. Even with my channel, I have over 600 videos. I purposely have tailored my content so that less than 5% of my content is about men or attracting a man and stuff like that. So we are leveling up in the sense of decentering men. Even when it comes to femininity content, I've noticed that us exoticals, even our femininity content, it's also not male centered. Have you ever noticed that some other women, sometimes their femininity content, it's very performative, very male centered, very focused around what do white men like? Oh, okay, they like it when I wear these types of clothes. Oh, they like it when I wear my natural hair. So let me go natural for a white man. Notice how even our femininity content is decentered from men. And I've just noticed like we are leveling up in general. I mean, we've got an exotical who is running for president right now. I don't necessarily think she's going to win, but even if she doesn't, like who cares? I mean, the representation is still there. Not to mention the fact that more women are starting their YouTube channels every day. We are getting out of 9 to 5 jobs working with basic Betties, and I've noticed that the same social strategies that other women talk about, like they will tell women of their own groups to use certain social strategies. They'll say things like, oh, you should go where you're celebrated. People will talk about social climbing. They won't use the term social climbing. Social climbing is now becoming popularized because of the exotical space, by the way. I stand 10 toes down on that. This channel, as well as other exotical channels, are the main ones who have repopularized that terminology, social climbing. Um, but I've noticed that women all over YouTube are now looking to the exoticals when it comes to level up content. And I've also noticed that some women are even running off of YouTube. I mean, we've ran people off YouTube temporarily. People are no longer wanting to be involved in the ism conversation because we are finally speaking up for our side. And I'm very proud of the dark skinned exoticals who are speaking up and acknowledging their privilege and acknowledging the fact that they have been exotified as well. I talk about this all the time. Dark skinned women can get exotified just as much as light skinned women. Dark skinned women can receive the same quote unquote privileges, if that's what you want to call them. They can receive the same types of privileges that are very relatable to women who have lighter skin tones or women who are mixed race. And so now we've got dark skinned women who are speaking up about their experiences as well. And I just think that overall, the times are changing. You know how they talk about the signs like, oh, we're in like the season of Aquarius or whatever. I just feel like there must be something in the air because the exoticals are leveling up. We are waking up. We are staying on code. We are going on decentering men journeys. And I'm just so happy to see how powerful we are, not to mention the fact that we are acknowledging our privileges, we're acknowledging our backgrounds. We are no longer going to be ashamed of our admixtures. Because I've noticed that before, a lot of people were able to bully you into only claiming unambiguous blackness. And then that led to social problems because then you've got biracials or mixed race women kind of like replacing unambiguous black women. And you know what I mean? Because they've been bullied into it. And we've been denying our other heritage. We've been denying our non black sides. People would accuse us of being self-hating. If you accept anything about yourself other than unambiguous blackness, apparently you're self-hating. So now we are leveling up and we're like, you know what? you're right. I'm not going to hide who I am. I'm not going to deny the existence of my family members. I'm not going to deny the fact that, yeah, I guess I am seen as quote unquote exotic. Or maybe the fact that my family is from a different ethnic background or something. You're right. I'm no longer going to hide those things. And so I just feel like we are having a mass level up because I see a lot of exoticals. They are now learning the languages. Like I've seen some channels with some Creole girls where they are speaking their language. They're learning how to say things in their languages and stuff. And I'm just so glad to see that multiculturalism is making a huge comeback. And people, even in monoracial communities, they are now realizing the value of multiculturalism because now they're divesting. Divestment is multiculturalism, for those who don't know. The term divest, like if they're divesting from the Black community, what they're saying is, I no longer want to be monoculturally Black. So even though you're monoracially Black, you're saying, I want to now be multicultural. I want to interact with men and women from other cultures. And so that increases our social power because we already were multicultural. We've just been hiding it this whole time because we were scared of being called anti Black. And so we were only engaging in, spaces where maybe Blackness is prioritized. And so I just feel like we are having a massive level up. I'm so proud of the women who are embracing who they are. They're embracing their native languages. I'm so glad to see that there are a lot of exoticals who are wearing their cultural clothing. And they're not scared anymore of people saying, "Oh, you're trying to be white, you're trying to be native, you're trying to be Pacific Islander." And it's like, "No, you actually are. That is a part of your background." And so I'm glad to see that women are embracing that. Also, in terms of the divestment movement, the divestors and swirlers, they actually help us. And so I will never be against the concept of swirling, obviously, because we wouldn't even exist if it weren't for swirling, duh. But also, divestors will only create more exoticals. They're creating more little Afro Latinas. They're creating more Blasian babies. They're creating Black and Filipino babies. And for those of you who say things like, oh, well, what if their parent abuses them? Okay, then that's why we have these channels that focus on how to overcome abusive parents, abusive Black parents, abusive non Black parents. And so those children will only grow up to then find these YouTube channels. Not only is that going to help us to increase our influence, but it's also going to help you financially as well. Like if you have a monetized YouTube channel, it'll help you financially. It'll help you to reach out to those children who have been abused. Not to mention the fact that the children of parents who are abusive, those children will grow up to set boundaries and probably abandon those parents or cut those parents off and go no contact. So even when it comes to that, there's no way that exoticals can lose because we are the future. Our phenotypes are the future. Our racial backgrounds are the future. Relationships that create children who look like us are the future. Multiculturalism is the future. And so there's no way that we will ever be left out. There's no way that we will ever like go out of style, if that makes sense. Obviously, your race and your culture is not a trend, but I just feel like a lot of haters are very mad because they see that we're creating YouTube channels. They see that we're speaking up for our experiences. Like I said, I'm very proud of the dark skin exoticals in particular who are leading the way because I really feel like the dark skin exoticals have actually been silenced the most because people will try to use colorism against dark skinned women. But I'm glad that this space over here acknowledges the nuances of experiencing colorism, but also being othered at the same time. Um, and I feel like when it comes to the colorism conversation, a lot of people forget that you can experience colorism and be light skinned as well. So, for example, even with me, it's so funny because I showed my hand on one of my videos and somebody was like, oh, so and so other person is lighter than Exoticals United. She's too dark, that sort of rhetoric. So it's like you can actually be a light skinned person and still experience people being colorist against you who are lighter than you or who are whiter than you or more white passing. And so I'm really glad to see the unity that we have been experiencing amongst all the different exoticals of all the different phenotypes, whether you're a black exotical, whether you are a mixed race exotical. And I've also noticed that we now have, well, we've already had for months now, we've already had unambiguous black women who have pretty privilege, who can relate to some of the experiences that we talk about over here, who are aligning themselves with us because they can relate. They can relate to the content and the experiences, and they love exoticals. Maybe their children are exoticals, or maybe their boyfriend or husband or whatever has some sort of background or phenotype that matches ours. So I've also been seeing the camaraderie between some of the exoticals here on YouTube with unambiguous content creators as well, who are not racist against mixed race people, because I don't have a problem with unambiguous black women who are not racist against mixed people. If you're not racist against mixed people, I don't have a problem with you. But I'm happy to see that we are coming together, and I really feel like we've got a lot of women mad because the women who were spending decades competing with us, the women who spent decades making us their beauty standard while lying to our faces and pretending like we're basic. And it's like we already know that like we're pretty, and it's not even like we're trying to say it like, oh, we're prettier than others. But I've noticed that sometimes women who have insecurities, they think that if you call someone pretty who is not themselves, then like they think it's a competition. So then they get mad. But I'm so glad to see that we've got even pretty unambiguous women who are standing in their pretty privilege, and they're unapologetic about it. They're unapologetic with their own beauty. And so they're not threatened by us exoticals. They're not threatened by our beauty or anything because they have just as much beauty themselves. And so I'm so proud of seeing the unity here on YouTube. But I've noticed that we've got some haters getting mad because we're leveling up. I've also noticed that for some women, it's probably affecting their pockets or maybe affecting like the trajectory of their YouTube channels, because I feel like some women, they've been on YouTube using these outdated talking points, or these talking points that I feel are completely false, such as Black women are at the bottom, they're the most disrespected, least preferred, last to get married, they're gonna like not succeed because of all the isms. I mean, I feel like not only are those talking points outdated, but they're also very male centered. You can succeed without being married, sis. You can still have pretty privilege without being married. You can still be dark skinned and still have pretty privilege. So I'm really glad to see the shift that's been happening both online and also offline. And I've noticed that some women, they're just hating and they get mad because they can't shake your confidence. They're mad because they can no longer manipulate you. They're mad because they can no longer use you as their emotional punching bag. And I'm so glad to see privileged Black women of all mixtures and all shades acknowledging their privilege, standing in their privilege, because, like I said, everybody has some sort of privilege. You just don't know what it is. You're benefiting from some sort of ism. It may not be colorism, texturism, or featureism, but it could be some other ism, such as lookism. And so I'm glad to see the pretty privileged Black women who are benefiting from lookism admitting that and creating channels and talking about that. And I've noticed that the women who have been kind of grasping at straws. The women who built their self-esteem on putting down exoticals, the women who built their self-esteem on trying to compete with or one up exoticals, those women are getting extremely mad. I've noticed some of them are quitting their platforms, or they're changing the trajectory of their platforms, or they're following suit. And they are giving us our exotical tax in the sense that, they're admitting to themselves, like, hey, you know what? They are right. Like, technically I am benefiting from pretty privilege myself. So, instead of pretending like I'm this self-righteous person, like I don't care or like I don't enjoy it, I'm going to enjoy whatever I was born with or whatever beauty I purchased, whether it's makeup or whatever. But I've noticed that a lot of haters get mad because number one, there are monoracial Black women who are exoticals. And I've talked about this in my 4-part series. An exotical is really just anybody who gets exotified. So it could be because of your hair texture, your skin tone, your facial features, or your racial background if you're a mixed race Black woman. And so I've noticed people get mad that I have monoracial women on this channel. They get mad that I acknowledge the monoracial Black women who also get exotified and the monoracial Black women whose voices have been silenced because they are viewed as the quote unquote privileged Black girl. And so people get mad at that unity. They don't like seeing a multiracial Black woman team up with a monoracial Black woman. And I think that's very silly. It's like, why would you get mad that I'm friends with the Black women? That doesn't even make sense. Why would you get mad if I'm friends with a dark skinned woman? That shows your own internalized anti Blackness and your own internalized colorism. Um, and I've noticed a lot of other people, they get mad because there are dark skinned women on this channel. So whether you're a darker skinned, mixed race woman, or maybe you're a darker skinned woman who is unambiguous with admixture, but your admixture happens to show up in your phenotype. So maybe you just happen to have 3C hair or something, or something about yourself where people exotify you, or maybe you happen to have, I don't know, light eyes. Maybe you're a dark skinned woman who has green eyes or something, and people happen to exotify you. People are literally getting mad and hating on the fact that all of us are coming together and being nice to each other. Like, imagine being so angry inside that you're mad that two Black women with different phenotypes can relate to each other. And so I've noticed that people are upset because of the unity that is happening in this community. People are upset because women are actually taking back their power. They're decentering men. They're saying, "Wait a minute. I don't have to do all this performative femininity shit. I can just decenter men altogether and just bask in my pretty privilege because I already believe I'm beautiful, and I can just create my own business and become the rich man instead of begging for a rich man or chasing after a rich man." And I also think too that if you are coming from a privileged perspective, you're already used to men kind of chasing you anyway. So, for example, look at the women who got mad at Shira 7 and they get mad at her content. Shira 7, she already has pretty privilege. So she's already spent her life having pretty privilege. So she's never been like validation starved, if that makes sense. She's never been like some sort of involuntary, like a fem cell type or anything like that. She's never been super thirsty or like starved for love, love starved, or like validation starved. No, I think that the issue with a lot of exoticals was maybe being more male centered in the past. But I think that with the rise of this channel and other exotical channels, and also combining that with the privileges that we have, we don't even care, and we never did care as much about the male gaze as the women who did not have it. Have you ever noticed that it's always the people who don't have a particular thing who care about that thing the most? People want what they don't have, right? So if you have curly hair, you want straight hair. If you have straight hair, you want afro hair. So if you don't have the male gaze, you want the male gaze. If you don't have access to men with money and dating and all that kind of stuff, then you want that. So, of course, your content and everything's going to be focused more so around that. And I've noticed that people are mad because we have finally spoken up for ourselves. We are finally coming together and leveling up as a collective. We are increasing our collective image, by the way. And I would say pretty girls in general, regardless of our race, we are all increasing our collective image and leveling up, because when I use that term pretty girl club, hey pretty girl club, that means like when I say that, the pretty girl club is just any woman who is like a subscriber, she can relate to the content. She is a pretty girl regardless of her race. So I've got non-black women who subscribe to this channel. I have unambiguous black women who subscribe to this channel. And I've noticed that what all the women have in common on this channel and in this space is that we are pretty. And so that's what brings us solidarity, is us identifying as being pretty or identifying with our pretty privilege. And so that actually helps us to have even more of a voice, because I'm glad to see pretty women of all races, whether they're unambiguous or white or whatever. I'm glad to see pretty women creating their own channels and speaking up for themselves. Because when it comes to pretty women, have you ever noticed that other women who don't even identify as having pretty privilege, they don't identify as having grown up with pretty privilege, those are the main women speaking about the pretty privilege topic. And so I'm glad to see other pretty women of all races speaking up and saying, no, actually, I identify as having pretty privilege and this is my experience. Another way that exoticals are leveling up is when it comes to the talking points about the soft life. I've noticed that like my talking points and a lot of the other exoticals talking points about the soft life, they are very male decentered. It's very self-focused, it's very self-love focused. It's very healing. I've noticed that a lot of women in this space are focused on living the soft life on your own terms and giving yourself the soft life as opposed to focusing on the middleman or hoping to get picked and hoping that this man will be kind enough and generous enough to you to give you the soft life over the next 80 years. I think that one of the other ways that we're leveling up is by taking back our power and saying, no, we can live the soft life on our own. I am pretty because I think I'm pretty. I decided that I'm pretty. I decided to manifest my beauty in a way that suits me and suits my aesthetic or goes with my internalized beauty standard. And I am living the soft life because of it. And so I love how the exoticals are really redefining what the soft life is. I like how we are breaking the mold in terms of femininity. I like how we are promoting decentered femininity, like male decentered femininity. So a man doesn't get to come to us and say, well, no, you're masculine. And then, he just strips you of your femininity. No, we get to decide on our own. Hey, wait a minute. Femininity is not a monolith. You can be feminine and elegant and classy. You can be feminine and be some country girl or a country bumpkin. You can be feminine and skinny, feminine and thick. And so I like how we're promoting kind of this diversified view of femininity as well. And so I've noticed that that actually has other people mad because of the creativity that we're expressing over here. I like how we stick with this mindset of, wait a minute, these things are not a monolith. And I've noticed that a lot of other content creators and stuff, and a lot of people on social media in general kind of copy one another, or they just kind of repeat and parrot other people's talking points. But I like how in this space, a lot of us, we're just kind of speaking from our heart. We're sharing what's in our hearts, even if it's different from what's in somebody else's heart. And I've noticed that other women sometimes they get mad and they view you as their enemy if you have a different viewpoint than them. People are mad at the fact that we are breaking stereotypes, we're breaking the mold, we're saying, hey, you can be beautiful on the inside and the outside. You get to be a standard of beauty. You get to be a standard of beauty. Beauty is not a monolith. And I just feel like the exoticals place an emphasis on diversity that other women don't. Because, if you're monoracial, monocultural, like if everything in your background is the same, if all the guys you've dealt with are the same race, same culture, same skin tone, all the women are the exact same, monocultural, monoracial, and then your background is also the same in terms of your experiences, then of course, your talking points may lack diversity, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I guess if you have a certain niche, that's fine. But I've noticed that the exoticals, because we already have diverse phenotypes and stuff, we have diverse experiences. And so we actually benefit off of our diverse experiences. Have you ever noticed that a woman who is classy is a woman who has a lot of different life experiences? That's really what the soft life is. It's about having positive life experiences, whether it's sitting by the pool, sipping on your little non alcoholic drink, because I don't drink. So, whether it's me sitting by the pool, sipping on a Shirley Temple, or whether it's me being at a nice restaurant, or maybe it's just me walking through the woods, going on a hike or something. All of those things get to be a part of my soft life. And so I've noticed that some people they get mad because they're mad at the fact that we have more diverse experiences and more diverse mindsets than theirs. And so they were speaking from this closed-minded perspective for the past 10 to 12 years, not realizing, "Oh wait, human beings are not a monolith. Wait a minute. There are other women who share my skin tone, but then their entire life experiences are different than mine." Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.